minefield of arcing ribbons of Kojima fanboy splooge that most rational human beings are at present breakdancing their way through in an attempt to avoid, and further given the inevitable maudlin caterwauling of the cult of Kojima that I have to deal with immediately after, I felt now would be a good time, as any really, to say my definitive word on the vastly overrated Metal Gear Solid series and my thoughts regarding the announcement of the new title at this year's increasingly marginalized and irrelevant Tokyo Game Show. Wow, yes, I realize that run-on sentence just lapped the Earth at the equator twice, but fuck your shit, I'm a grammatical loose cannon, I'll do what I want. So, at the end of the day, I've taken my pot shots, and I've shot my wad on the Twin Snakes, but vaguely phallic illusions aside, this game sucks ass through a garden hose for free, or more accurately for the bargain price of $60 fucking dollars and your last modicum of fucking taste. But I'm asked on a nigh-daily basis to disseminate my precise reasons for why I regard Metal Gear Solid as not only a bad game, but a bad stealth game, a bad story, and a bad entertainment in general, and a bad movie. And that's exactly what you're going to receive in today's rant, so depucker your anus because I will not be held accountable for any resultant prolapse. One thing I've always detested, and it's an element that even the most vociferous of Kojima's prospective chamber boys, and now actual game designers themselves, have taken to leveling against Hideo Kojima, is that in Metal Gear Solid you really don't play as Solid Snake. You play as a white dot on a fucking radar that's represented incidentally in 3 dimensions by Solid Snake. The 3D environments, the player model, the guards, they're living, breathing superfluities, as a player would in all instances be better served by simply looking at the fucking radar and avoiding the enemy's magical cones of vision. The result is a glorified arcade game at best, and the least immersive experience in contemporary gaming at absolute worst, but inevitably the same shrieking shitheels that use this pixelated pomposity to justify their purchase of a PlayStation 3 will vainly believe they've hoisted you by your own petard by offering their most profound insight, which is invariably the blinding fucking obvious. But like, the radar totally goes out sometimes. But that, of course, dovetails unwittingly into an even worse aspect of this series, which is that the game is so fucking heavy-handed with its masturbatory, painstakingly scripted set pieces that the player is ultimately relegated to being a glorified fucking appendix. And further, I find myself fucking bewildered that many of the same gamers who decried Final Fantasy X and XIII for degenerating into a series of linear hallways garnished with eye candy and punctuated by indulgent, laborious cinematics, featuring a cast of prepubescent one-note caricatures draped in Square Enix's merchandising regalia, will nevertheless pull a 180 and laud Metal Gear Solid for being guilty of all that and considerably fucking more. I mean, Metal Gear Solid's levels are immutably linear, and I'm stifling belly laughs, as apparently only now, when Hideo Kojima himself has shifted the game to a pseudo-open world formula, that any of you gibbering fucking hypocrites will even dare to acknowledge that the series was suffocatingly goddamn linear in the first place. I mean, that double standard just goes down smooth as far as I'm concerned, and what's more, irrespective of linearity, they're micro-fucking-scopic. It blows my mind that walking less than a fucking city block in Thief 2: The Metal Age feels markedly more immense than traversing an entire jungle in Metal Gear Solid 3, which ironically is the example that virtually every leering Kojimaite will probably use in the comments section in attempting to whitewash this fucking afterbirth. Perhaps more aggravating than all of the above, at least where I'm concerned, is all the opining on American and international political philosophy that a series generated by a man that, in my estimation, has a barely serviceable high school level political education of any description chooses to proffer. Don't believe me? Well, might I direct you to Solid Snake's, like, balmy, vainglorious soliloquy at the conclusion of Metal Gear Solid 2. I mean, really? Nearly a fucking hour of Solid Snake discussing grade school political conspiracies with occasional pepperings of children being taken to school and American flags flapping in the breeze and Raiden bending to kiss fucking babies. And don't fucking cherry pick and say, well, Metal Gear Solid 2 isn't that good. I don't really like it. Metal Gear Solid 2 was made by your lord and savior, Hideo Kojima, you vacillating fuckwad. It's a perfect example of what happens when the man climbs so far inside his own ass, he can pick the Lucky Charms out of his own molars. This, Metal Gear Solid 2, is an unadulterated example of the alleged genius of one Hideo Kojima. Kojima, a gleaming exemplar of all the man could accomplish with an obese budget, copious undeserved accolades, and a frothing irrational fan base that firmly believes all he's ever created is a blameless slice of perfection, pinched from the moist birth canal of the Virgin Mary and polished to a glossy sheen by Denise Milani's tits. Fuck you for being the reason that game and dozens like it will be made in the future. Fuck you for expecting absolutely nothing from your stealth games. Fuck you for implicitly lowering the standard for all of us. I'm RazörFist. God fucking speed.